Okay, good afternoon. Hi. Good afternoon. Welcome to Talking Trade at FIT. And today's program focuses on post-graduation. How do we get jobs? And we know that you're all having a great time here and you love coming to FIT, but one day you have to enter out there into the world. And so we thought, what better way than to have you speak to our alum? And so therefore we have 3, 9, 12, 17, and 20 years post-graduation. So it's going to be an informal chat, and our alumni are going to tell you what their strategies were for finding their first, position, and what opportunities and challenges they faced, and some unexpected changes in their career path. So we hope you enjoy it, and we also invite you afterwards to please come network with them and come talk to them. And if you're looking for information, we have a lovely slideshow about what they've done in their careers, and we'll take it from there. Okay, and very quick thank you to all of our student volunteers and our department admin and our department chair and our professors as well for supporting us. Okay, let's hope these work. So, one of the first questions we thought was most important when we were discussing doing this panel is, was there something special out there that helped you get that, that first job? Was there something that you did that you would tell students today that they should be focusing on? And so I'm going to start and ask Jackie Katerina. And Jackie, why don't you just tell us your title? The first time you speak, let's let everybody know who you are.
Sure. Hi, I'm Jackie Katerina. I am the Senior Production Manager at American Eagle Outfitters. My team and I oversee all of men's and women's accessories, including footwear, home, belts, and bags. So anything really non-apparel. I have been in the industry since graduating, and I love it. Honestly, I really do. So something when I was first graduating was, well, number one, my father was in the industry and I could have took the easy way out. My dad could have gotten me a job super quick, and that's networking, right? Very easy. And everyone probably on this panel will say, like, networking definitely helps. But the one thing that I think all of you will probably resonate with is I hustled. I hustled my resume. I sent it to everyone and everything out there. And back in the day, the internet wasn't what it is today. It was the World Wide Web, and it was very different. But I did. I sent my resume everywhere, and I just inundated the field with it. And it was really luck of the draw for me, to be honest with you. I just interviewed at many, many places. At the time, AMC was something, which is now Target. Macy's Merchandising Group I interviewed with, and I just went out there and I hit the pavement. And I did it before I graduated. So the number one thing that I can tell you guys is try to project where you want to be a few months before graduation, and then hustle from today until that day, because then you'll graduate with a job.
Thank you. Liz, would you like to tell us about?
Yeah, hi everybody. So I'm Liz Poulos. I actually do work for Macy's Merchandising Group. I work in social compliance and sustainability, so I really work with the factories to make sure that wherever we're producing, there's good health and safety conditions, the workers are getting paid what they're supposed to be getting paid. I do a little bit of work in chemical compliance, making sure that there's the chemicals and the fibers that we use are not toxic and can be certified organic, these sorts of things. So I've been there I'm coming on, I'll be a year soon. And before that, I was at a firm down in Washington, D.C. It's my first job out of FIT. I moved down there for it, which was okay, but I'm happy to be back. And it was kind of one of these things where I came right out of school and they thrust me into a senior manager role where I was in charge of pretty much the entire operations and had no idea what I was doing. So it was really challenging. And what they do is they certify factories all over the world for social compliance. So they sent me to Asia, managed the Bangladesh office, spent a lot of time in factories and learning about the culture and the issues that you find in the factories over there. And so that's kind of, been my path since FIT. And, I really figured out that I wanted to do this. It was actually in Professor Jimenez's CSR class. It was the year that Rana Plaza happened, and I'm sure all of you guys know that about Rana Plaza. Does everybody know about Rana Plaza? Okay, good. If you don't, go look it up. It's really important to our industry. Or take the CSR class. I believe Andrea's teaching it now. And so, my experience at FIT, there were a lot of opportunities to get involved with things. And, I was in the CSR club. I had the, opportunity to co-write a textbook on CSR with Professor Jimenez. There were volunteer opportunities at various different conferences. And really, I just took advantage of every single thing I could find and said yes to everything, even though I was stressed out with school and I didn't have a lot of time. With the scholarships that we have, that is an amazing opportunity. A lot of students don't take advantage of that because they're too busy. And, something that I've really learned is that you have to push yourself for these things because they're worth it. It's more important to take advantage of these opportunities than it is to, finish that essay, although obviously you want to finish your essay on time. But, this program really does have a lot of opportunities to meet people in our industry. And I would say definitely, don't say no to anything. Anything you can do that you're interested in, go for it. For me, it was a lot of networking. I didn't have to send out my resume a lot. I got lucky, but that's because of the connections that I made. And actually, it was one of our professors who was on the board of this organization down in DC who referred me for the job. But it was because I had gotten involved with Clinton Global Initiative University, which I believe is still something that FIT is doing. Suzanne McGillicuddy is the contact for that, where basically students come up with ideas and they get a chance to go to the CGIU event, wherever it is, and Bill Clinton is there and Hillary Clinton is very exciting. And I had done a project on factories in Bangladesh, and so I had actually had a call with the CEO of the company that hired me. A year before he hired me. So I already had these I had planted all of these seeds, and then by the time that I graduated and I was able to go out there, people knew who I was, and that was absolutely huge for me. And I would also say that networking can seem like you're asking for something from people, and it's not that. It's really learning about people, asking questions, making friends, and just learning about things. So I would, recommend not thinking of it as if I meet this person, it's because I want a job. It's really just getting your face out there, learning things, and making those connections.
Thank you. Susanna, you used professional job forums, I remember, so maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Hi, my name is Susanna Mercedes, and I graduated in 2005. Back then, Jackie mentioned, we didn't have the engines that we have today. So, but we did have Monster.com, which is still around. So what I did, my strategy was 2 years before I graduated, I kind of set up goals of what do I want and who I want to become within the international trade community. So I kind of defined that I wanted it to get into international logistics and that I wanted it to be involved in something international. So what I did, as soon as I graduated, I brought my resume to Christine, And I bug her so many days until my resume was pristine. And as soon as I posted my resume on Monster, I got probably 10 calls from different companies, and I got a job probably 6 months after I graduated. So that my strategy was that, lined up who I want to be, what do I want within the field, and mirror my resume, align my resume along those lines, and that actually makes it a little bit easier.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing now?
So I work for the first vertical farm let's say in the United States. There are 5 vertical farming in the United States, but we have the first mass production farm. And what I mean by farm, we grow. We grow 5 kinds of lettuce. And the name of the company is Aero Farms, if you guys. It's very futuristic. It's where the future is going. I decided, and you will wonder, we're all in the fashion industry, and how did you wind up farming? Well, there's a lot of opportunities out there, I have to tell you, and the knowledge that you gain here will take you anywhere.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. One of the things that we had discussed in preparing for the panel is that a lot of times when you go out into the work world, it's not what we expected. We find a lot of things that we don't like. But those things that we don't like and we don't enjoy, they kind of make us, and they make us stronger. And so I wanted to ask Elena to speak to that.
Hi, my name is Elena Mogilevsky, and my current job is Vice President of Production and Sourcing for Comar Brands, which is a 110-year-old privately held company. We are the #1 in pajamas, so anytime you guys go into a department store, a Kohl's, Walmart, Target, you probably have seen products that my company has made. We're not just manufacturers, we're also producers. We own factories in Sri Lanka. So I've been there for about 7 years now. I'm also an adjunct professor here at FIT, which I love, and that was one of the goals that I set for myself when I graduated FIT, and knew that I always wanted to come back as a professor, and have recently been able to take that opportunity and do it. So it's always a question, and I love telling this story, because when I graduated, really, I got a job. Headhunters were the way you got a job. So I remember actually using a payphone on the corner on 34th Street to call my parents and tell them how my headhunter interview went. And obviously by that, I'm the 20-year one on this panel. And I got a job right away. I graduated. One thing that I will just take a step back and tell you that through internships at FIT is what made me decide what I did and actually didn't want to do. And I think that's really important. You talk about these really positive internship experience. And as much as all my internship experiences were extremely positive, it also taught me what I didn't want to go down and the career path that I didn't want to choose. And I think that's just as important as realizing the career path that you do want to choose. So keep that in mind, that everything is a learning experience that you do. I went to my first, I went to a headhunter. She said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want a job in fashion." She said, "Okay." And I got sent out to a few interviews, and I landed a job at a children's wear company. Unbehold to me, I didn't really know a lot about the industry, but this company was difficult to work for, I will just say. And I decided that even though the turnaround time at this company was 3 months, I am going to take this opportunity to learn everything I can. And we did a lot of private label, which is learning a lot of testing, a lot of procedures. And as people left, that gave me the opportunity to grow within the company. It gave me the opportunity to absorb more. It gave me the opportunity to say to myself, I'm going to take this And as much as they're difficult, we worked very long hours, and the environment was not what I would hope for. I walked away from that at a young age, being able to go overseas, because I got to that point. I knew all the accounts of Walmart, Target, JCPenney. I came out of that job so marketable. It was unbelievable. When someone looked at my resume and said, wow, you were there for 4 years? Because it had a reputation. I mean, I got that job when I went on my second interview. And, just going back, it actually taught me what I didn't want or I did want in my next employer. It's just as important. When you guys go out there, and as much as I know you're hungry for a job, you're interviewing the companies too. You want to be able, and you want to work there. You want to have a good work experience. So you're interviewing them. Find out things about that company and their work ethic.
Thank you. Jackie, would you like to tell your story?
Sure. So out of graduating, which was in 2001, I'll just let you all know about that now, which was forever ago, I wanted to be a buyer. And I thought I was in, merchandising, and I want to be a buyer, and it seemed so cool, and la la la. I got to be a buyer, and it was so boring. I hated every moment of it. And even though I got an A in retail math, and I was like magna cum laude here, and it was amazing, and I was like, I'm going to be the best buyer ever. It was so boring, I wanted to shoot myself in the head every day. But that's okay. So I just absorbed, like she's saying. And then I figured out the career path of, okay, well, a buyer needs to know planning. So after my first job, actually, the company went Chapter 11 after a year of me being there, and I had to find a new job, and I went into planning at Perry Ellis. And I thought, okay, well, this is the career path of a buyer, because you need to understand the finances behind it. Even worse. I was just like, this is awful, and this is not for me. But I was so torn, because I thought, I went to school for this, and this is what I thought it was going to be, and I did internships, and my internships, though, I was an intern at Barney's New York. Like, that was fun in the department store and, like, working in personal shopping. I thought being a buyer was Barney's New York. That is not being a buyer in mass market whatsoever. So, just say that. So, after this terrible experience in buying and planning, I said, okay, I need to hit the reset button, and I need to kind of figure out, what do I really want to do? But I love fashion. So I got another job, like years down the road, like 5 years down the road, with a small accessory company in a showroom. And I actually took a job as an executive assistant to the CEO of the company, because I just needed to get my foot in the door, which wasn't ideal, but I wanted to make a change. And so sometimes you have to take those chances to say to yourself, like, I want to do something different, and I just need to get into the company. So what could I do to learn? And being the executive assistant to the CEO probably is the best thing I could have done now for this point in my career, looking back. It launched me into what I do today. So after a year of being his assistant and picking up handbags at Balenciaga and making dinner reservations, and I went to school for something, but not that, he said to me, I think you're smarter than this, and I think you could actually be used in our design studio. We need some help in product development. Would you want to work with the designers? And I was like, yeah, that would be awesome. I would love to go over there and work with them. And they were working on brands like Michael Kors and Guess and Calvin Klein. And it just all enamored me. And I worked my butt off. I went over there every afternoon to help the design team. And I created spec sheets. And I started working with factories. And I hustled. And my boss said to me, you know what? I think that we can let you be promoted. And you can go over to the design studio and be a product development assistant. And for him today, I'm so thankful, because that launched me into my career. So it was a really rocky road to start for me, obviously, because I thought I wanted to be this buyer and then awful planning situation. But I learned so much from it. But then I took a chance, and it just launched me into where I am today. So just take that chance is the best advice I can give you.
Thank you. Susanna?
Well, my side of the story starts like this. When I came back from the practicum at that time, I've already figured that I didn't want to do anything related to fashion. I figured out throughout the whole career that with the knowledge of the program, I could do whatever I wanted to. So I landed a job as a import analyst for UPS. And what I did at that time, I learned everything, just like they said. I learned every single thing that I can put my head on. I became the #1 person in that department. I figured out what is it that I have to do now. I have all these knowledge, so my job at that point was to become a hands-on, learn everything that was done in that department so I can start setting a path. Happened that I hated working for UPS. It's a great company, but I didn't like that specific department. So I started figuring out, what am I going to do, what am I going to do, and I landed my second job as logistic coordinator for a chemical trading company. There you go. Here is me with all this fashion knowledge. I don't know anything about chemicals. Chemicals comes into this country it's a whole different game. But once again, we were in the same position that you guys are there. Do not be afraid. If you think you can do it, just jump on it. So that's what I did, and I traded chemicals for about 5, 6, 7 years. And as time went along, I just moved and changed with the times, and I followed my heart. One day I wanted to trade chemicals, the next day I am today farming. So who knows?
Thank you. Our next question is, what role has networking played in your career? And we'll start off with you, Andrea.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Andrea Reyes. I wear a couple of different hats. So I graduated in 2009, but before ITM, I actually got my associate's degree at FIT in pattern making. And before that, I was actually in the high school classes here. So I think I've been at FIT for 15 years now. So when I was in ITM, right before that, I took a trip to Uganda. And I fell in love with the artisans that were there and the tailors that were there. And I ended up deciding that right then and there, I was going to create my own fashion line, my own product line. So I took that passion that I had for this country that I had just learned about, and as we all know, in ITM, you can pick your projects and you can pick what area you kind of want to focus on. So I dove into importing, exporting out of East Africa, making things from secondhand recycled materials, doing a substantial transformation. So when I graduated ITM, I had this business plan, this idea of what I wanted to do. And I went back to Uganda. I convinced my older sister to go to Uganda with me, and we lived there for 2.5 years, and we worked with these group of artists that we still work with today. But when it comes to networking, what I've learned is it takes a long time for anybody to connect your name, your face, and what you want to do. So no matter what industry you want to go into, or whatever niche you want to go into, if you're interested in shoes, if you're interested in a certain category of apparel, start going to those events and start meeting and learning who the key players are. Because like I said, it takes a long time for people to connect who you are, what you want to do, your face, your name, and all of that. So after I finished, not finished, but after I returned from Uganda, I actually came back to FIT and got my master's in global fashion management, because I knew I had to reaffirm my roots at FIT in the fashion community, and I started going to all of these panel discussions, all of these events, anything about sustainability, fair trade, and I got to learn who the key players are. And fast forward, I guess 5, 6 years later, now I guess you could say I'm one of those key players. I'm the chair of the New York City Fair Trade Coalition. So now not only do I get to come back and teach at FIT, but now I get to encourage other people to become advocates, what I call advocates. So people who are passionate about sustainability, passionate about fair trade, and now try to connect them into our community. Trying to get them to participate even though they're in school, because as many of the other panelists had said, it's hard to do all of this while you were in school. But take advantage of these opportunities now, because what I find is students who graduate, they miss having classes to go to. You don't believe me, but it's true. You will miss it. And you'll look for outside activities, and we've gotten a lot of people to join the Fair Trade Coalition that way because they're looking for that community again. They're looking to continue learning. So networking is a key part, and I think we have to tear down the myths of networking, because I've certainly been to events where I'm encouraged, or I feel very uncomfortable to go up to somebody and to introduce myself. So a great way to network is to volunteer. If you see an event that you're interested in, email the organizers and say, hey, I'm available to help you during this event. Figure out ways that you can get different roles and responsibilities, so you're not just the person in the audience, but now you're the person behind the scenes, maybe taking the panelists to the room that they have to go into. And I'm probably going to remember your name, your face, and what you do, more likely if you're helping me do something, or if you're a part of the event versus just a participant. So I think that is a really easy, tangible way for you to get involved and active in your future careers.
Thank you. Liz?
Yeah, so I guess to follow up, I talked about this a little bit before, I guess in the wrong question area, but you know, absolutely what all of these ladies have said about, you know, it's really about getting yourself out there. And for me, you know, I still try to, you know, once a week I try to go out with someone in my industry, meet them for coffee, meet them for dinner or something like that, and talk about stuff. Just talk about ourselves, talk about work, talk about what they're doing, learn from them. And I'm not looking for a job. I'm not looking for anything from them except for, you know, learning and basically keeping all of those lines open. And I think anytime you meet somebody, and I would highly recommend that after this, if you're interested in any or all of us, come up to us, talk to us, introduce yourself, get our cards, find us on LinkedIn, say who you are, say where you met us. And you know, now every time I meet anybody, I always link into them, and I do remind them how I met them. And that way, you know, at some point in in the future, I might need to say, hey, you know, I'm really interested in this company. Can you tell me what it's like to work there, or something like that? And I find that, you know, people really do like to talk about themselves. So you don't necessarily have to worry about bugging them or feeling like you're bugging them about it. People like to help. People like to give advice. And the other thing is that, you know, I think we spoke about this early, you know, when we were talking about this panel. You know, don't be afraid to keep at it. If you've emailed someone and they don't email you back, remember, we're really busy. We get hundreds of emails a day. And it's okay to keep doing it. Maybe not every 5 minutes. But, you know, like, I appreciate it when someone says, hey, you know, not sure if you saw this, just wondering, you know, if you'd be up for a chat sometimes. And I'm always up for, you know, a 15-minute phone call, or coffee or whatever. And, you know, keep at it. Don't give up after the first try. Because people appreciate tenacity as long as it's done in a, you know, professional, you know, pleasant sort of way. So I would say absolutely don't get intimidated, and realize that you guys are absolutely have a lot to give the world, and you have stuff to give us as well as we have to give you. So you know, don't be shy, and like Andrea says, volunteer for everything. You know, because you never know who you're going to meet. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard this story about, you know, taking a job as an executive assistant, or assistant to somebody, and then they say, you know what, you're smarter than this, you should be going into this, and then they put them in a different part of the company, they recommend them to someone. And actually, I know a CEO of a skincare line. She used to be very, very high up VP in L'Oreal, and she started that way. So you never know who you're talking to. And be nice to your teachers and your fellow students, because you don't know who's going to be these people around you. You're going to see them again in your life. So use that too. Don't forget that the other students are a great resource as well.
Thank you. And I think the long-term important thing about networking is that if you do enough networking, you come to a point where you don't have to look for jobs. The jobs look for you.
Yeah.
Because you're on people's minds and they know that you're out there. So even if it's scary, you just have to keep at it. Is there something you believed about your chosen area of specialty that you now know was completely incorrect? And Jackie, you said you...
Okay, so this story goes to my thought about production. So production, as many of you may or may not know, is the entire process between product development and design development and the end consumer. But my initial view of production, because I was working at 9 West at the time and I was in product development where it was split, was that they were only logistics and moving containers from China to the stores or the distribution center. And I was like, ooh, I never want to be in production. That's not for me. And I judged it. And now, because I am where I am in production, but it encompasses all of design development and product development and the entire process, it makes me, actually I'm mad at myself for judging the whole process before. So don't turn your nose up at what you think something could be at one place because that's the way it's done. Because everywhere else it could be done differently, and jobs are called different things everywhere you go. So don't stereotype anything. Just because I'm the production manager at American Eagle doesn't mean that whatever I'm doing is exactly the same at J. Crew or at Madewell. They're very different roles at every different company. So get your information from the sources as you're going through cultivating what you want to do. Because if you just see a job title and you discard it because of what you think it is, you might be wrong. So I would say that's pretty good advice to give all of you, because I absolutely love what I do today. And if I would have turned my nose up at my title when I got interviewed for this position, I would probably not be where I am, and I'm very happy today, so, yeah.
Okay. Liz?
Yeah, so one of the things that I've learned over the years is that you can't take anything at face value. So obviously, and Andrea can probably speak to this as well, we're both in the world of ethical fashion. And every single day I hear a statistic or hear someone say something or read an article that is absolutely not true. And that's, we're in the world of fake news right now, so I think everyone's kind of aware of this situation. But especially I think in our world, you have to question everything, and you have to say, where did that come from? If you hear a statistic, is that a real statistic? Did someone just make it up? Don't just believe everything you read or assume that because someone seems credible, they are credible. Because, there's so many things about specifically my industry that I've learned working in it that I never would have guessed before. And things that have really, really surprised me about how much misinformation is out in the world. And especially just, with social media, people say things all the time, not necessarily true. So that's all I'm going to say. It's just always question everything you hear. It's a good policy with your entire life.
Thank you. Do you participate in professional groups, and why? And Elena, I'll ask you to start that one off.
Yeah, I actually early on as well, like an FIT and everything, realized that there are so many professional groups out there that you could be involved in. Having worked at my first job, which was a children's wear company, from there I moved into Sara Lee, and I didn't make cakes, At that time, Sara Lee actually owned lots of intimate apparel companies. You guys would probably know Hanes as the #1 intimate company that they owned. They had later on spun off, but even earlier on, at that point, I joined what was called the Under Fashion Club, which was part of the intimate apparel industry, pajamas and bras and underwears. And from there, I mean, it wasn't just networking. I realized how much the Under Fashion Club did for giving back to the community. They give back to FIT. They have these amazing scholarships that they fundraise for FIT designers. They have trade talks just like this. So when you think of a professional organization, really think of it as all-encompassing. You know, sometimes it could be time-consuming, but you're not just meeting people, you're really doing so much more. Even when I went into Foot Locker and I did shoes, I still ended up staying and belonging to the Under Fashion Club. I'm back in the intimate apparel industry now, so that's great that I still belong there. And this year, actually, Comar won the Femi Award, which is sort of like the Emmy, but for the intimate apparel industry. You know, and we were able to raise just so much, I don't even remember the exact number, but a very large scholarship for FIT designers, as well as our company provided a large scholarship in Eileen West's name, who had recently passed away. So these professional organizations really do, they're great for your career. They're also great for when you go out there and you find another job and you want to say, well, I also do this, or I sit on this panel for the Under Fashion Club. You know, I try to give my time to the Under Fashion Club as well, not just show up to meetings, but I'll be head of, you know, one committee or another as time permits. So they're really great for lots of different areas within your career. So really, you know, try to join them.
Andrea?
So I'll speak to the entrepreneurs in the room. As an entrepreneur, my day-to-day is pretty different than most others. I wake up early and my office is right in my room. So I get to work and I miss coworkers a lot of the time, or I find myself, I don't even know how many hours a week I work, right? Because there's no line between work and home and personal life. So a lot of these professional organizations, especially being in sustainability, where your consuming habits affect you in so many different ways, including in your personal life. Most of my very good friends now are friends that we have similar ethics and values. And these are people that I met at different professional events and professional organizations. And they have helped me make business decisions, because my friends and family don't really want to sit and listen to me for 3 hours about, well, there's this people I can work with, and there's this opportunity, and there's that opportunity. So I needed to find my people. I needed to find like-minded individuals that were going to give me the time, effort, and energy, but at the same time understood what my goals were and wanted to see me succeed. So now I sometimes get too many opportunities, whether to be on this board or to be a part of this function in school, and now it's gotten to a point where I have to kind of have a very candid conversation. One thing that Liz was saying earlier that made me think of, say yes to everything. And if you feel like you can't say yes to everything, have a conversation about it. Because there have definitely been opportunities, for instance, right now, somebody asked me to teach a class and it conflicted with something else. And normally I would email back saying, I'd love to do it, but I really can't. I said, can we have a conversation about it? And I said, these are the things that I have going on. I can give you this much time. And they were able to work around my schedule. So you never get what you don't ask for. So you may think that your schedule is very packed. You may think that you don't have the time to do the opportunity that's been presented to you, but try to dig a little bit deeper and see if there's something else there. You may not be able to do a full-time position, a part-time position, but maybe there's one little project that then you can put on your resume that you had worked for the Fair Trade Coalition, and that's going to get you more opportunities. Or maybe I even get to learn a little bit more about you, and the opportunity I presented to you may not be your passion, but now you've told me, you know, I'm really passionate about this area, and I may have somebody that I want to connect you with. Because for me, as an entrepreneur, it's all about problem solving. I constantly want to, whether it's fix the fashion industry or make my day-to-day business operations better and smoother. If somebody's reaching out to me asking for advice, I'm always happy to be there to supply that.
Liz, what role do professional groups play for you?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's networking and learning. Obviously, I'm very much about learning. I think I've mentioned it about 10 times already. I like learning. I love school. I love going to conferences, which is really, you know, I'm member of the American Apparel Footwear Association, the U.S. Center of International Business, U.S. Chamber of Commerce. I don't know, there's a bunch of them that I don't even know what I'm involved in. But I go to every conference I can because this is what these groups do. They put on conferences and they send out information. So I'm constantly informed about my industry, about what's going on in human rights all over the world, sustainability all over the world. I get to meet people, I get to learn new things. It's awesome. You know, I'm fortunate enough that I can be part of these groups because I work for a large company that pays the dues. So I know as students it's a little bit harder to do that, but I can tell you absolutely they always need volunteers. And actually the one I forgot was the U.S. Fashion Industry Association, which I believe some of the ITM students volunteered for earlier this year, and it's a great opportunity to really meet people who work in all these different companies and to really learn a lot about our industry. So those opportunities are completely available.
I just want to add in my own participation in professional associations is that I've always felt that because associations have the time to kind of look ahead of the curve, they do keep you informed about what's coming around the bend. And if you pay attention and you focus on learning those things, that will help you in your career because you'll be better informed than somebody who's just got their head down on their desk, you know, and into their job, because you'll be solving the next problem, you know, for your employers. Okay. And the next question is, do you have someone that you stayed in touch with that helped you with career advice or advancement? So, Susanna?
Well, I said that before. I kept very close to my mentors, my professors at that time. Every time in my career, when I have to make a decision, whether it is to travel overseas for an assignment or to just any regular question about the industry, I'll just use my professors and my network. And Patrick and Christine and Sonja, they have been with me all along my career.
Jackie?
So I mentioned earlier that my father was in the industry and I didn't want to take any help from him, but my father's always been my mentor. He was an EVP at Barney's for 35 years. So I constantly, still to this day, I speak to my father almost every day about stuff that's going on at work and just to bounce it off of him. But I also made relationships throughout my career with presidents of companies and actually old bosses that I keep in touch with, because you never know when you need someone's help just about basically anything or just industry knowledge. So I worked with a company a while ago to help them launch a handbag collection, but they're a major shoe manufacturer. Well, they're a major shoe manufacturer in the entire world, and I like to ask them questions about what's selling and what do you think we're missing in our assortment at American Eagle, because you guys know what's going on. So it's really having your ear to the ground too, in a way, by having these friends out there that you can always just kind of pick up the phone or send a text to and be like, hey, did you hear like flip-flops are working right now and it's freezing outside? Like, are you guys seeing that too? Like, it's funny to me, but it's like what I do all day long. So to have that kind of guidance either within my workday or also outside is super important. And what it really comes down to also is don't burn your bridges, because your relationships are everything. So just be very careful about how you treat each other and how you treat other people, because you never know if the person sitting next to you right now is going to be your next boss or vice versa. And I learned that actually once the hard way. So I did burn a bridge in my career, and I never will do it again. So just be cognizant of your mannerisms. And something my dad always said to me was, keep your head down. Keep your head down, do a good job, and just get through it. And sometimes that's the best. Like, just don't gossip and don't burn any bridges, because you never know who you're going to meet along the way. Like, it's 17 years since I've graduated, and I cannot tell you, all these people are around me still. And the one that's not, thank God, is all the way over there. But it really has taught me something. So even if it's just like an intern at my company, I'm just always very aware and mindful of their feelings and what they may come to do one day, because, hey, they could be my boss one day. I don't know. You never know.
This industry is very small. That's a good reminder.
Yeah.
Elena, did you have anyone?
Yeah, I actually did. I actually got my position right now. I was very happy at Foot Locker. I loved it. I loved that I was actually out of the intimate apparel industry. In my head, I really didn't want to be what you call pigeonholed into one industry. So I was very excited working for a retailer as well. I was always on the manufacturing end, and I loved that I got this job at Foot Locker doing everything from socks to puffy jackets to board shorts to belts, and I mean, literally down to underwear. Anything that you walk into a Foot Locker store that had a Foot Locker label on it fell under my umbrella. And it was an exciting job, and I loved it. I loved being part of the retail environment. And I got a call one day. I was at Foot Locker for 6 years. I get a call from my old boss. She came to Comar Brands. She was my boss over at Sara Lee. We've kept in touch. And they were launching intimate apparel. You know, it was a 100-year-old company, well, 103 years, because now it's 110, and they were launching intimate apparel. They needed a vice president. I was a director at Foot Locker, and they wanted a vice president of sourcing, production, and product development. She called me, and I said, you know, I'm really not looking. I'm really happy, but of course, you know, I'll go and speak to, you know, Comar because of you, Sylvia. And I went, and it was an incredible opportunity that I received. I was offered the job, and I will be honest, it was probably the best thing that happened to me, knowing the retail environment now and what happened at Foot Locker in private label. So it was a blessing that, you know, I've continued to stay in touch. I will say one story. I have a vendor. I have this vendor who I always thought was a little quirky. I met him at Foot Locker years and years ago, but he always calls me every 2 weeks for lunch. Every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, like clockwork. And I'm like, I don't even do anything that this vendor, like, he's a nice guy. I go out for coffee with him, but I don't even do Foot Locker anymore. I don't have anything to give him. And you know what? He's persistent. He's a friend of mine now, and he met an intimate apparel company at a show that he started working with. And you know what? I'm working with him again, and that was him being persistent on his end, and me just being the nice person that I am. And you know, who doesn't like a free sushi lunch, right? Once in a while. So I continued to go out with him, and now you know what? He got business for my company again. So that just shows you networking from a different angle. You know, he stayed persistent.
Okay, that's the end of the prepared questions, and I do have one for all of you that is unprepared. If you have one piece of advice that you would like to hand out as our students are leaving school, what is it? And just go down the line.
Well, I guess also kind of tagging on the mentors, figure out what kind of lifestyle you want to lead. You don't have to lead a 9 to 5, which is more like a 9 to 8 or 9 now. You can create your own life. You can create, I love now that you can curate your life. If you want to work part-time, if you want to have a consulting firm, if you want to be a Zumba instructor on the weekend, you define what success means to you by your own terms. Once upon a time, success was only working this job with this title, getting this 401k. Things have shifted considerably now. And nowadays, you don't have to jump from one degree to the next degree because you're scared that you're going to get off track. I was telling Sonia earlier, I'm probably going to be that 80-year-old woman who is getting that law degree and has never been to, her cap and gown ceremony, but at 81, I'm like, why not? Let's do this. So find people, find mentors that you want to emulate their life. Maybe they're traveling a lot. Maybe they're CEOs and they're started their own company and it's unorthodox, but create what happiness and success means to you.
Totally agree with all of that, and I'll kind of piggyback on it and say, this took me a really long time. I always thought that I could have a plan, and I knew where I was going to go, and if I did this, and then this, and then this, and that's totally not true. You don't even, you might think that you have this perfect job, I want to be a buyer, I want to be whatever. You get there, it's not what you thought it was going to be. So, don't try to think that you're going to have this perfect 5-year, 10-year, 15-year plan. Life happens, things are unpredictable. The one thing that I think, it took me way too long to realize was I wanted to work with people that I enjoy, that care about my success. And in my current job, I made the very conscious decision that I was going to find a manager, not a job. I made a great choice. I found someone who is my mentor. She supports me. She's my advocate. I've never had that before. I've had a lot of very bad managers because I thought it was the job that was important. And I've really realized that that's not the way it works. So my advice would be really go out there, look for someone who can support you. When you're interviewing, like we said, I think you said it, you're interviewing for the company as well. Make sure it's the kind of culture you want. Don't just think that it's the perfect job, because it's not going to be. The people who you work with, who you work for, who work under you, that's what it's really, really all about, and that's how you're going to be successful in your life.
I think one of the best advices that I can give, and it's something that Comar actually taught me, and it's on the back of their business cards, and it is, you have one reputation, don't screw it up. And, in this life, you have one reputation. And I think that that is an incredible saying. I never thought about it before, but, it's what Comar really stands behind. It's what they believe in. They believe in all their employees that they need to be ethical and they need to do the job based on being being good people. I mean, that's basically it, being good people. And, you have this reputation as a student, as a worker, in the industry, anywhere you go, you want to make sure that your reputation stands behind you and you have a great reputation. You never want to do anything or be at a company or that's going to put that into jeopardy. So, know that this life and you have one reputation.
Jack.
So everyone really touched on everything that I was thinking, but the one thing that we even haven't talked about, which I think everybody's probably wondering about, is money. So you all want to get paid, right? And you think you're going to graduate college and you're going to win the lottery because you're suddenly making like double-digit thousands of dollars, which is what I thought, and then I went to credit card debt. But anyway, so you're going to take a job for whatever the amount is, and that amount of money seems great. But it doesn't matter how much money that is. What matters is if you're happy every single day. If you take a job because it's, let's say $55,000 and it's, it sounds great, but there's another job where you think you make a better fit, but they only want to pay you $45,000. Take the $45,000 job and take a bite at the 10, because to be honest with you, your happiness matters so much more on a regular basis that $10,000 a year doesn't matter. So just take that into consideration when you're all out there and you're thinking about salaries and what you need to live. Your happiness is worth so much. Your work-life balance is worth so much. And remember, those things equal money too, so just think about that.
Susanna?
Well, I'm going to take a complete different approach to all the panelists. We, and while everybody was, talking, and I myself mentally sat right there where you guys are. That's where we were at some point. It's fairly easy to, 13, 14 years in the industry, graduated, to come here and say, this is how you guys should do this, you guys should do that. But the only thing that I remember that helped me to pave my career was looking at the curricular, picking how many of those classes and how many of those participation where I've been and what kind of thing I do like, and try to build a career around those classes. That's what I did many years ago. There was a lot of knowledge and I was so overwhelmed, and it was a lot and everything was good. So I found myself going in so many different directions. Do I want to become a broker? Do I want to be in fashion? What exactly do I want to do? So what I did, I narrowed the entire curricular and I built a career around that. So that's my advice to all of you.
All right, thank you all. And now we'd like to give you guys the opportunity to ask questions of our panelists.
There's mics at the end over there if we want to pass them around.
There's one on either side.
Gotcha. I just had two quick questions. Number one, did you plan the black and gray color coordination?
Yes, we did. We're in fashion. We're professionals.
You could tell we're in fashion.
I like it.
I have a problem with color. This is color.
Or we're in New York City, whichever,
Yeah, it's the New York uniform.
And then for Susanna, could you just go a bit more in depth into what you do at Aero Farms? Because I didn't really understand it, but.
Aero Farm, it's a vertical farming. Currently, there are five vertical farm in the United States. And what I mean by vertical farm, we grow lettuce, arugula, kale, and 5 other different greens, pending from the ceiling in a facility. What makes Aero Farm different from the other 5 companies in the United States who are doing that? It's that we generate about 200 tons of leafy greens, and we sell it in bulk for other people to resell it in different supermarkets. Right now, I manage the entire warehousing and the shipping and receiving of Aero Farm.
And we're going to organize a field trip if anybody wants to go visit.
Where is it?
Aero Farm, it's located in Newark. And just this week, we bought another facility in somewhere in England. I can't even remember. They still have it very, very close. But we are building in England the farm of the future. So stay tuned.
Hi, my name's Kelly. I'm an AMC major, and this whole time we've been talking about advice that you have followed and have become successful with. But I was wondering, has there ever been advice you were given, taken, and regretted taking?
That's a great question. I can take that one. You have to stay in a job for a year. If you don't stay in the job for at least a year, it's going to look terrible on your resume. It doesn't matter that you have heart palpitations and your hair is falling out and you've lost 30 pounds. No, quit that job. Quit that job because it's just holding you back from that job that better suits you. We hope that you have a good support system. The number of times I've told my mother, hey mom, I quit my job, I'm going to Africa, they'll be okay. So I hate to say quit often, but if it's not working for you, you should readjust, refocus. And that's probably for life. You want to grow and change and evolve. So don't feel as though you have to stay with something, especially at such a young age.
And actually, I've spoken to people, VPs of companies who've said that actually if they don't see someone moving around at least every few years, they're starting to question why, right? Like, why would you stay at the same job for 10 years? Do you not want to learn new things? Do you not have goals outside of this? That sort of thing. So I think nowadays it's a lot more, I think this is another piece of advice is that, sometimes people have advice for you that isn't necessarily accurate anymore. And so, I've definitely been told things that were either outdated or, because the world changes very quickly, right? And so don't take anyone's advice, unless, I would say, take a lot of advice and put it together and figure out which part makes sense for you, right? Because ultimately, you're the only person who knows yourself. So, if you're not happy somewhere, you got to figure out whether or not you need to go somewhere else. Don't let someone else tell you to do that or not.
So I just want to say something along the same line. After working for the chemical trading industry for 5 years, I decided to sell my house and move to another country. And a lot of people came and they said, "Are you crazy? You have this job and it is so solid and you're gonna just let it go?" So I did that. I quit and I went to live and study in Europe for 2 years. It was extremely scary. But when I came back to the United States, it took me 3 months to get a job just because I made the decision to go away. So please do not be afraid. We're all part of an international community here. Think about that for a moment.
So building on that, some of you have taken master degrees or are pursuing them or are thinking of pursuing them. What role has that played in your career, and why do you think it's important enough to undertake for your next step in your careers?
Let me take that one. I'm currently going for a master's degree. So I will tell you that, and I am the oldest person in my class. I'm older than one of the professors. And I will say this, I have a philosophy of never stop learning. So I think that that's something to consider. The world is always changing. There's always something new. And so I've always been educating myself my entire career, whether it was in a professional forum or whether it was going for a formal degree. The formal degree has some advantages. It gets recognized in other places of business. People like to see that. I'll tell you right now, for me, more than as a professional, although it does have some professional benefits, I feel like it's working for me more as a professor because I'm seeing things I like and seeing things I don't like and thinking, wow, that's the impact in my own classes. So I think it's important to keep going forward and keep learning and to recognize all the aspects of what you can learn from what you're doing.
I can add to that. It's interesting when you are in school, because I imagine for most of you, you have been in school consistently since you were 5. Am I right? You've never had a break. So I will say I think it's important to take a break after you graduate to process all that you have learned. Because I find that when you're in the midst of worrying about getting to class on time, getting your assignments in on time, making sure that you're passing all the courses, that you kind of are missing the whole fun of learning it or absorbing it or, like I said, processing it. So my goal is to kind of take 5 years in between and miss learning, miss being in that academic environment. And by the time I went back to get my master's degree, I realized that there's not many times in your life where you have this intense period of learning. And for me, my master's was 1.5 years. So it was a 1.5 years, that's it. It's not a long time to have an intense period of learning that got my level of thinking from here to here. And now I'm actually thinking, I think it's almost been 5 years since my master's to go and get my doctorate now, because I want to have that intense area of focused learning again, especially because I know what I'm passionate about. I know sustainability, ethical fashion is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. So now where can I deepen that understanding? And obviously the opportunities will come and it will open up for higher pay grades and more opportunities with career and personal development. But I think that we forget the learning part and then the processing part, and how you will probably, hopefully, learn in one way or another, whether it's formal or informal, for the rest of your life.
Yeah, all of that, and also it's about the people you meet, right? I mean, I'm doing my master's right now, and the people in my class, they are amazing, and I'm learning from them all the time, and it's fun talking about stuff you're interested in with people, because I know my husband doesn't want to hear it anymore, and most of my friends are into other things, so to be passionate about something, to be around other people who are passionate about the same things, and you guys all have that ability right now. That's super, super valuable as well.
I could say that I've been thinking about getting my master's for 20 years. And every day, every year, I've said next year. And, I went down I will be on, a lot of these women have gone down atypical paths. I went down a very typical path. I went down the path of graduate college, get a job, have a husband, have 2 kids. I'm still trying for the dog. My husband's saying no. So I went down a very typical path, and now I realize, I've always wanted to get that master's degree. I always wanted it, and I'm lucky enough, and you'll see when you get out into the world, a lot of companies will support that. I'm at a company right now that will support paying my, tuition. Maybe it's not all of it, and, it's a negotiation, but a lot of companies want higher education this day and age. I feel that, even in the fashion industry, when you kind of sit there and you say, it's the fashion industry, and we are coming out of a very prestigious, amazing school. I mean, you guys are very lucky. You're graduating with the name FIT on your resume. And I will say one thing, that means something in our industry. It means a lot. When you go there and I tell people what I do, and then I tell them where I went to school, they go, ah. It's always the head nod, like, oh, yes, of course you went to FIT. That's why you are where you are today. So, I don't know if it's going to get me the next job, but I know that right now I am pursuing going back to get my master's.
Well, I don't have a master's degree. I just haven't had the opportunity in my life. I travel quite a bit for work, so that just is not something that I could really manage, but I do have friends that have their master's degrees, and they are very successful people. I think it's really just about you and what you think you can manage as part of your schedule and where you go in your career. I've learned so much in my career that I don't know if going back into a classroom I would learn any of that stuff. So it's just kind of how you feel, and maybe one day I'll feel differently. There's other things in life that I want to do that are different. So it just depends on you. I think focus on graduating, getting yourself a really good job, and getting your roots in the industry first, and then figure it out. Like she was saying earlier, don't stay in school because you're never going to learn anything outside of here, right? So you're getting a great base. Go out there, root it down, meet tons of people, and then kind of look back and say, do you think I should go back to school? I don't really know, because what you think today is not necessarily what you're going to think 5 years from now. Or 20 years, because that was me.
I totally agree to what you're saying. I finished up a master's degree 2 years ago in production and supply chain. I took my time to learn the industry, and again, it's all about what do I want to do with this master? Where do I want to go? But it's definitely worth it. After a while, we have a 4-year degree, and it is time to refresh our career. So take that time, take that master degree to refresh your career at that time. But definitely take the time. I've seen a lot of people who kind of rush into finishing the 4-year degree and getting into a master degree, finding themselves later on doing something completely different that they perhaps gonna have to go out there and do another master to try to further their career. So it is totally worth it. Sometime out there in the industry, people say, well, but if you have a master, some people may see you as somebody who's overqualified. There's no such a thing. It is always worth it. But one thing I have to say, I decided to do me always different, doing things completely different. I decided to move to Italy and pursue a master's degree from a university in Italy. And it was very scary. So the first thing that I did, I went to my mentors and I asked them about, what do they think about the idea of going to a foreign country? I did a lot of research. I figured out if the school was supposed to be approved in the United States. I did my due diligence and so on and so forth. So again, I'm a big advocate of studying overseas, learning overseas, learning other languages. So please take that into consideration as you guys going into the future.
Yeah, and I'm just going to piggyback on that as well and just say traveling is the best education you can ever possibly get. Yeah. There's never been a time when I said, oh, I wish I hadn't gone to Cambodia or South America or wherever it was. It's always an incredible learning experience. So highly recommended.
Hi, I'm Hafid Cohen. I'm a FBM student, and my question is to Jackie, and it's also related to what Susanna has said about carefully choosing our classes in school. Jackie, you talked about the transition that you made from buying and planning into product development. And for me, I thought this option doesn't even exist. I currently specialize in buying and planning and retail management. And I always have this question in the back of my head, like, what if I would want to go into product development in the future? Would I have this opportunity even? So I would like to hear what you have to say about that.
Well, yeah. I mean, you have every opportunity that you want. And that's something for all of you to remember. You can have any opportunity that you want as long as you put your mind to it and don't doubt yourself. So just be sure about that, number one. But you're marketable no matter what your specialization is, let's call, because all of those skills that you learn in buying and planning are all translatable into development and production, right? Because in what we do in production and development is we cost the goods, so we still have to work on the margins. We still have to land the goods, and we need to know all that number stuff, but it's not as intricate as buying and planning. Knowing that financial piece makes you stronger as a person in that area, but then vice versa, right? So if I wanted to now go into buying and planning or merchandising, so to speak, I would be very knowledgeable in the product piece and the manufacturing side of it. So that makes me very knowledgeable. But I'm very honest to say, I really don't like numbers, and a spreadsheet scares the hell out of me. So that might not be very attractive. But it makes you, no matter what it is, it makes you marketable into what you want to do. So don't be afraid. If you think you want to do something like that, there are so many jobs where they encompass all of those things. So at a department store, so I've worked for a Kohl's department store in my past, and my title was product manager. And you would have no idea what that means, right? Product manager is actually a buyer and a product development person in one. So you have to cost the line, you have to then work through all the IMUs, you have to work with all the vendors, and then you work with the planning team to actually place the goods. So there are many, many jobs out there that encompass all of those things. So it's great to have that flexibility. Never pigeonhole yourself into something because you're afraid of what the other side of the grass is going to have for you.
Thank you.
I can actually add to that because in my career, I came here and I did 2 years in fashion buying and merchandising, and then I went into ITM. And I could tell you just throughout my career how many people I have met who have jumped from one to one. Buyers who became product development into buying and planning, even within my own company in manufacturing, sales assistants that go into production or production that goes into merchandising. The opportunities are there, and don't be afraid to apply for them. Don't be afraid to also, once you find a job, find a mentor for yourself in a different position within a different department of the company to see if maybe you want to do that in the future. And I've seen it a lot happen, so the answer is absolutely yes. Your career can take you into different paths, even with this degree.
Yeah, and one of the other things I'll add is that when you work for these larger companies like mine or wherever, the big brands, you'll see that everything's so vertical. So there are departments that you don't even know existed that you didn't even learn in college, like packaging and testing. And you learned about them, but you didn't know that there was a job out there for it. Like at American Eagle, we have a testing and compliance team. I have an OPM team, which means on-product marketing. Those are the people that are in charge of our little hang tags and anything the products go into. I mean, it's kind of endless when you think about it. So don't just think like your job is your job at every company, like I was saying earlier, because within every company, there are so many different aspects that you can get involved in. I mean, you can get involved in stores and social media, and I mean, it's so cool out there now, different from when I was applying for a job too. I mean, there's just so much out there for you guys to all sink your teeth into. It's awesome. So whatever sparks your interest, like if you love Instagram and you like Twitter and all that other stuff you guys do, go to social media. Like you guys are all so smart, to be honest. Like you're techie and you know what you're doing. Like go for it. Just do it. If you love it, do it.
Hi, my name is Liz. Although I'm interning right now at a company where I really love the work environment, I do want to have my own business one day. So I was wondering, Andrea, you said you have your own business. What has been the biggest struggle you had, and do you find that branding and marketing yourself was very hard? And you've all mentioned that finding mentors is very important. What's the best way to find that mentor, and maybe what's the best way to avoid mistakes? I know they're inevitable, but I was just wondering what's the best way to kind of get started with a business and yeah.
Before Andrea answers, I just want to say we have a mentoring initiative in ITM, and so one of the things, and we're willing to extend it to alumni too, so I don't know where you are in the graduation cycle, but we will try and pair you with someone in the industry or a former alum. That's one of the things we want to see one day from you, 10 years out, when you're successful. Come back and help a student, move forward. But if you want, you can always just email me directly, and we'll work on getting you in the next cycle of our mentee-mentor relationships, okay?
I'm a
And
mentor.
there's mentors right up here,
Yeah.
Hi.
We are mentors up here. You could be one of my 150 young women I probably mentor at this point. So entrepreneurship. Where to begin? I felt prepared. I was born an entrepreneur, right? I was boss day one. My mother will say that. I'm not very obedient. I'm not very good at being told what to do. She actually encouraged me to buy my company's name, abernadette.com, when I was 15. So I knew this was going to happen. There are certainly steps that you can take if being an entrepreneur is your path, and I'm sure you've already taken them through, selling lemonade when you're 5 years old and having a very high markup because I'm cute, my branding, right? So taking those steps, I think the hardest part about being an entrepreneur is going at it alone, in a sense. I am very, very lucky that my sister is my business partner, and she cannot divorce me. She is going to be my support network forever, and she can never, we can never break that bond, for better or for worse. Even she has decided to kind of continue down a different career path. She is still my number one supporter, and I find that so many entrepreneurs, that is the reason that they give up is because they don't have a good support system, and they don't have the ridiculous confidence in themselves that I think you need as an entrepreneur. The ideas that I have that my business is going to, the direction that it's going to go into, I tell a lot of people, and for the non-entrepreneur, it makes them nervous, it makes their stomach hurt. And in the beginning, when I started my business and I was investing hundreds of my own dollars, I was thinking, oh, is this the direction I want to go into? And then 3 years later, thousands of dollars, and then tens of thousands of dollars, and your stomach lining gets stronger. And then all of a sudden, now I'm talking about opening up a store where I'm going to potentially look for $50,000. My stomach hurts just thinking about that. But these things grow and build over time, and it's a very high likelihood any fashion line that is created is going to fail, and you have to know that going into it. But if you talk to any entrepreneurs, I think they, have 5 to 100 businesses before they hit that successful one. So if you're an entrepreneur, there's nothing you can do about it. You're stuck with it. Just go with who you are, because you won't be happy in any other situation. But I will say at the same time, I've never been too prideful to go back into the industry. I was lucky enough to start working as a technical designer. I think I was 19, and working for a year, quitting and going to Uganda, then coming back and finding that job because I was cash poor. I had some ideas floating around, and then getting that money that I'm going to use for my startup, and then after a year or two being bored out of my mind and quitting and traveling again or going back to school. And that's what I find successful entrepreneurs, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. I am successful today because Aberndet still exists after 6 years. But having your own business is like having a baby. My business is 6 years old, it's walking, it's talking, I can send it to school. Maybe I can get somebody else to take care of it when it's 30. But this is my primary, thing that I wake up and care about each day. So if this has not scared you, keep going.
Are there any other questions? Okay, if not, then I want to thank you all, and I want to ask you to give this great panel a really warm round of applause.